Hi, if there's anybody still watching after all that doom and gloom, I wouldn't blame you if you're not, but if you are, I'm going to give you a few conclusions of why I went into all those things. There was one disaster I didn't talk about. It's known as the Mao famine. It's called a famine, but in 1950, they had to deal with in China, where they take half the crops and they'd send to Beijing and to the masses, and they'd give the rest to the peasants. Well, they shipped them all. They shipped all of the food, all the grain to Beijing. Mao did, and 20 to 25 million people vanished, died as a result of that decision by Mao. It's become known as the Mao famine. But the reason I brought all these things up is because I think that most of us that are awake are aware that the governments are just waiting for another natural disaster. They're going to put out a false flag, and they're going to take away a lot of our liberties. You know, you take the World Trade Centers, as tragic as that was, 3,000 people were killed. But as a result of that, we got the Homeland Security Agency. We've watched our rights dissipate. Every day they dissipate more. We killed one guy here a couple months ago when we supposedly killed Osama bin Laden. Look how many rights have been taken away just since then. As a matter of fact, people often wonder why would they make it so obvious that it was a bunch of crap. In my opinion, the reason they did it is they wanted to see just how gullible people are. They wanted to see what they could get away with. And they got away with a lot. And we didn't do anything about it. There's a lot of us talking about it, but we didn't do anything. The masses in general bought the whole thing lock, stock, and barrel, just like they bought 9/11, just like they're going to buy the need for a one war NWO. The powers that be want total control, and they're going to use the next natural disaster to show that it's necessary. We're as guilty as they are. We're the ones that wanted, when I was a kid, when your parents got old, you took care of them. You didn't have the socialistic United States take care of them. You took care of them. The family took care of them. But we've grown the way we've grown because we've been able to move. And the government's aware of that, and so they've taken more and more and more control. And if we don't stop this avalanche of big government, our children, all of our future generations will become the slaves to the elite. I think we see it coming. It's time that we think about. I look at things in three different things. You need to get away from the corporations, you need to get away from the government, and you need to get away from the banks. Somehow. At one time, when we had liberties, we weren't that involved with corporations. Today, everybody shops the cheapest place they can go. They go to Walmart primarily, and consequently what's happening is all the local grocery stores can't survive. They're more expensive. They can't buy the stuff as cheap as the big corporations sell it. But unless we take the sacrifice and begin to support those people, they're going to be gone. Remember when there were gas stations everywhere? How many independent gas stations do you see now? It's the only way we're going to be able to fight the corporations is to quit participating with them. When it comes to the government, if we look at them to solve all our problems, if the guy next door is beating up his wife, somebody runs and calls the cops. In the old days, they didn't do that. The guy wouldn't have beat up his wife because the neighbors would have went over and kicked his butt. You don't beat up women. You don't beat up kids. But we have gave the control to the government. It's time to start backing away from them. It's time to start taking control of our lives. Or we're going to give it to them. As far as the banksters, everything is dominated by the use for money. It's all about money. And we've got ourselves in this thing that we can't survive without it. We can't survive a day. We got to go to the corporate store to buy some food, to the corporate gas station to get some things. We got to make sure the government's sending us our check. And we got to borrow money from the bankers. Until we begin to go back to a little bit to the way things were, if we do, and I don't know that we ever will, but it's not a decision that you're going to start a movement. It's a decision that you have to make as an individual, one at a time. If you make that decision, and you can make it, somebody's going to look at that and they're going to say, huh, I could do that, but at least you got to try. Anyway, the false flag is coming. When there's a natural disaster, they're going to use that as an excuse to take our liberties. If we're aware of it, maybe we can combat what's coming. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm sorry to be so negative today, but I think we need to take things into perspective. All these natural disasters are not new. They're going to continue. That's Mother Nature. I talked about natural disasters. I didn't talk about how many millions of people that the governments and the elite have killed in wars. I didn't talk about a lot of things. Fill in the blanks on those. Anyway, thank you all for watching me today. Have a good day. God bless you.